chat. Today we have Amber Cantu, and she's a CERT, which is something she's going to explain to us right now.
I am a certified emergency response team responder for Snohomish County. And so we're a team that was created by FEMA after 9/11 because we realized the importance of having community teams come together in the event of a disaster. And we realized that our first responders, as far as our EMTs and firefighters, just were not enough to cover the thousands of people in our community. And so we've developed a team called CERT.
What does your job entail?
Specifically, I'm trained in a few different areas. One is we have on-hand training to go in, whether it's an earthquake, a fire, a landslide, a terrorist attack. We can go in and rescue people. We are trained medically as well as physically and emotionally and also psychologically for the different effects on our people that we are responding to.
What got you interested in this?
I think the number one thing that I think I recognized was that there were so many different natural disasters that have been happening around the world, realizing that just in a moment's notice, oftentimes we get, wind of, oh, there's a tsunami or hurricane or an earthquake, and we needed to be ready and equipped as a community.
So are you saying that there's going to be a tragedy around us soon?
What I'm saying is we weren't prepared for OSO, which was the landslide a couple years ago, and that kind of really bring an awareness to our community that we really needed to have deeper training and equip just everyone in our community.
Okay.
So how often do you do your training? Is that like
every year we have a 7-week training that we get shirred up in, as well as year-round. We also have little mini trainings that we do periodically, and most of our training is done so far, for me anyway. They have an amazing setup in Machias, in Snohomish, off Machias, where they do a lot of emergency training there.
So is this like a job, or do you get paid to do it, or is it like volunteer
It's
work?
volunteer work.
Okay.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yeah. So.
Have you ever had, did you ever get called in or anything to do something?
So I'm also a disaster response chaplain, and so I've got called in a lot on things that, which could be anywhere from a car accident to a drowning. Those also are disasters, and to a family, and so I have had to walk alongside families and explain, the circumstances, what happened, situations, and walk them through those things as well. Yep.
So you said there are tragedies. Does this affect you in any way emotionally?
Yes, it does, actually. It can be very taxing as a human being, as a mom, as a sister, a mom, an aunt, and a grandma. I see that walking with families that are going through this, thinking something as simple as, your kid goes swimming and ends up drowning, and it was a complete just a freak accident, and knowing that, wow, that could happen to anybody, that can be taxing on the emotions for sure.
So, do you do anything else with like medical or emergency or?
Yeah, actually, I worked for hospice also for a while. Yep, and I also was a family counselor for a funeral home and cemetery for several years, and so and in doing that, also kind of correlated with working with hospice, and that's kind of how I got into the hospice business. So, yeah, so just helping people in their last hours of need. So, yeah.
Do you have like education for this? Like, did you have to go to college or?
Yes.
That
yes.
makes sense.
Yes, I had several years of schooling, and I also got my bachelor's degree as well. So, yeah.
So, did you plan on doing like all of this, or?
No.
Oh.
No, one event led to another. So I just, I think my first doing the being a family counselor for funeral home and cemetery, and working with people in hospice actually brought me to wanting to work with hospice rather than waiting till the end, hopping in before and helping. And then working with hospice got me into wanting to be, I think, more prepared for my community in different arenas and areas as well. So, yeah, just one thing kind of led to the next to the next. So, yeah.
All right, so we'll be back after this segment.
Yeah, I take my job pretty seriously. Ma'am? Ma'am. No phones allowed, ma'am. No running in the hall. You only take a 10-minute lunch break.
Someone say lunch? I heard lunch. I want lunch.
Go back to sleep. Lunch.
Gary! Oh yeah!
Welcome back, Charger Chat. I'm Adrian, and this is Kat, and we are going to get back to this interview. So, you were talking about like your work in preparing for like disasters. What exactly do you do to do that?
Well, one thing that we are working on is preparing our community by informing our community about some of the simple things that we can do to prepare ourselves. As far as just some practical things are having a few cases of water, having meals for each person or family up to 2 weeks, and also just doing some practical things like learning CPR, learning common first aid, and also I think one of the biggest things that we like to emphasize with people is we have to learn how to take care of ourselves first and then everyone else. Because if I'm too busy taking care of everyone else and I don't make sure that I'm okay first, then I'm no good to everyone else. So just doing a self-check. Also, making sure some things too are having something simple as having a flashlight, having having a first aid kit, obviously, that's part of learning first aid, and also making sure that we have shoes, and a set of shoes and clothing is always good to have in a bag, ready to go. So in the event of an emergency, let's say there's an earthquake, it would be really good if you had a bag set aside that had one set of clothing per person and a pair of shoes. So you really don't know if it's going to happen in the middle of the night or not, and you need a safe place to quickly grab your bag and go, get out into a safe place. It could, if it's really a devastating event, then we kind of have to have some of those things handy and in mind. Also, one thing we like to let people know is if there is a disaster and everyone's in school and at work, do you guys have a common place to meet? A lot of families have not really discussed that and thought about it. My husband works in Seattle, he works in Everett, he works in Bellingham, and I also have 2 adult sons do we have a plan set up of, the cell towers go out, where is a common place we're going to meet? And how many hours are we going to wait there? These are all just some really good questions to ask ourselves. And also, do we have an escape route plan in our home? Everyone should know where the exits are, and they should know the safest, fastest way to exit the home as well. Yep.
So do you teach like any classes for the community on like how to help them prepare, or how do you get the word out on how to prepare for this?
So I actually emphasize taking a CERT training course firsthand for our community, because and any age can take the class. Anybody can take the class and be prepared. And I believe that they're very strategic, and they're very detailed. And also there's hands-on, real life experiences. They have a 4-story mock, plan in case of a disaster that you can walk through, like with real, dummies that are the weight of a real person. They teach you how to make a gurney, how to use a gurney, and transfer people. I mean, it's really detailed, and anyone can take the class. They usually host classes once a year in your community, so it's good to find out who's hosting those classes. Usually it's going to be a fire department, and then get hooked up and take one. Yeah.
So have you recently taken any?
Yes, I am actually in the process of taking one now, and we are midway through taking our course for this year. Yes.
Have you learned any new things that you haven't learned in the past?
Yes, actually. I think for me, every year we learn new things about our area, and one of the biggest things I've learned about is the greater need in the community, and where that greater need is, which is in, I believe, the common neighborhoods, where if there's an earthquake, one should never drive over a bridge or an overpass, which even, like we have a lot of little creeks and streams in our area. Well, in an earthquake, that actually could give way. Afterwards, it might look fine, but we don't know if that's structurally sound or not. And we need to map out and route the safest way to get to a hospital. And if we have to go over one of those, then there's not obviously a safe way to get to a hospital or for a responder to get to us. And so it's really good to map out and route just in case you're going to need medical emergency care, how to safely get to a hospital. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to ask?
How many classes have you taken?
How many classes have I taken? I've taken a lot of classes. And directly to the disaster response training and courses, I've taken probably maybe 12 different classes.
When was the last class you took?
I'm currently taking a class on CERT right now.
So how much of your time does this take up, being involved in all of this?
Just depends. It depends on my availability, to be honest, because it can take up quite a lot of your time if you take every case that comes along. But if you choose to just, be available on certain days or times of the week, because there's always tragedies, there's always something happening in our community. So I just have to be very cautious of not allowing it to take up too much of my time, because I just want to help and meet the need.
Yeah. So they're pretty flexible with.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes. Yeah. So.
All right, Charger Chat. We're going to go on to our second segment, Literal Figures of Speech. All right, welcome back, Charger Chat. We are going to continue with, you've been talking a lot about what you do. How is that related to Red Cross and what they do?
Okay, so how we actually have a lot of commonality. We will actually work hand in hand with Red Cross in the event of a disaster or a tragedy. And what we actually have similar training. So we have the medical, the emotional, and the physical training, and also so the difference would be is that we do not get paid. We're Red Cross. They pay their employees, most of them. They do have a lot of volunteers as well, and we, in general, do not have a lot of money, like a reserve, like the Red Cross, but we do directly work with FEMA because FEMA is where our training originally came from, and they have equipped most of the fire departments with the training, the CERT training, and so FEMA also works with Red Cross, so we do have a lot of similarities. Red Cross oftentimes, though, cannot be right on scene in the event of a major disaster, and so, or it might take them several days to get a team together to get ready to dispatch. Whereas CERT, we are training teams right in the community, right where we live. So in the event of a disaster, we're ready and we can respond immediately. We can respond to our families, we can respond to our immediate neighbors, and then branch out into other neighborhoods. So,
Have you ever thought about crossing over to Red Cross?
No.
Why is that?
I would, we will work hand in hand with Red Cross in different communities, but we realize that the reason FEMA has organized this, actually this is kind of like a ground roots movement, is because people realized that there was more of a need to get our community trained to respond immediately to a crisis.
So you talked about how you would want people to do this class so that they would be certified as well. How do they do that? How do they sign up or?
So it's something as simple as Googling CERT, C-E-R-T, and finding out where they are training in the in your local community. They do actually offer classes a lot of times through that aren't offered through the fire department. The fire department offers classes for free, whereas if you go to through another venue, they oftentimes will cost anywhere from $400 to $600 per class.
Interesting.
So how does it feel to respond to a disaster or?
So in the beginning, there's not a lot of feeling, like because you're just going, and oftentimes adrenaline just kind of takes over, and you're just doing what you're trained to do and what you know to do. And then afterwards, though, kind of like usually 75% of the way in, you start to feel the emotion. You start to realize what's going on, and sometimes you just have to take a step back and breathe and realize that it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And then afterwards, though, sometimes we do need to debrief. We do need to actually seek a counselor ourselves, really to process the things that we've seen, because sometimes when you're dealing with maybe the loss of a person in the community, that could really be traumatizing. And so we need to make sure that we too are taking care of ourselves.
So you talked about how it takes a toll on you emotionally. Does it do that for your family as well, or the people that surround you often?
It can actually. It can be taxing on the family if you have to be gone for long periods of time. And then they are dealing also with the emotion. Sometimes if there was a really emotional trauma to the CERT worker, then it could affect the family as well, because they're dealing with the emotions of the family member. And so that's why we need to make sure that we debrief and talk about our feelings and make sure that we're emotionally sound as well.
All right, well, thank you for talking to us about that. We are going to move on to our third segment, Charger Chat. All right, welcome back to Charger Chat. So we're going to wrap it up. Is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to let the audience know?
I think the number one thing would be to make sure that we have maybe a family discussion on the event of a disaster or a tragedy, and get a schematic going as far as exits and meeting places, and just kind of sure up some of the things that we talked about, making sure we have the proper water and food on hand, as well as maybe some emergency bags set up. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for letting us interview you. It's been a pleasure to have you on. All right, Marysville, thank you for watching. Take her advice, please. And yeah.